Anyway. So I ascended the ivory tower. I took to the ivory tower. Every step was like relieving and terrifying. Every single step of the ivory tower. And I can see clearly that first step, I can see why those other soldiers, those other uniforms stepped away immediately, because it was a doozy. I felt it deep inside of me. Like something wanting to rip and tear out of my stomach. Something that wanted to just tear me apart. And I would like to say that the experience itself got better from there, but it didn't. Every step was like being split in half. Every step was much like the ocean, and the sound of it intensified with each step. As soon as you were about to make a step, it felt like the crashing waves were rolling up on me, and the tower vibrated. I vibrated. Everything was hit with an instant shake. Damn, I thought I was going to crumble. Like, there would be this step that would turn me to stone, and the erupting shake would just tear me apart. And every time I took a step, I began to see things. Very clearly, I began to see how naive I was. I put so much faith in the uniform. I put so much faith in that if people were willing to do the right thing at a moment in which they have everything to gain, that they would actually consider what other people cared about, what other people love and enjoy and want with their lives. I figured if I wasn't the one doing the right thing by anybody, and I couldn't be trusted by anybody, that there would be a somebody who was my exact opposite that would do the right thing. But it became so clear with each step that, like, I guess it would be the duality of man comes to me. There's the loving and the considerate and the generous, and then there is the selfish, loathing, depraved human being. It was like everything in me that made me put on that uniform in the first place was just getting crushed under the waves, was just being fucking destroyed. Like, nothing was left. I mean, I saw like pieces pieces of myself falling away with each step, like a layer, like a fucking onion. Like every goddamn step was like bricks coming loose from an old building and collapsing on each step. And the weight of it was like the ocean itself crashing down on each one of those steps that I have made when I completed putting my damn foot down to bringing my next foot up to where I finally stepped to the next one. And this took me what felt like an eternity. Hours of my life just fucking walking upstairs. If you've never experienced an eternity from doing something that you could have done a million times, over a million times, hell, like breathing, for it to change on you in such a manner is just disturbing and wrong. But at the same time, it was nothing like I've ever experienced. And no, I never really talk about what I've experienced beyond just hating my uniform and the way it's all right to consider other people combative when you're in the wrong. Honestly, after ascending those stairs, reaching the middle, and seeing what I saw, and going up the ghost stairs that led to the top, it's like a goddamn microcosm. I gotta gather myself. So otherwise, this is gonna be incomprehensible, just cussing. Alright, soldier, get it together. It was everything. Where do I even start with everything? Ever since the first bomb dropped and everyone wanted somebody to blame, like from the ivory tower, the further up you went, the more things you began to see past the middle flight. So the first set of stairs is like tearing away everything you thought you knew about yourself. Every single step was eradicating you. I mean, eradication. There's nothing left for you to even consider at that point. And then it's like the world is still when you reach the middle. And then when you see the translucent stairs that lead to the top, or at least what looks translucent, but at least got my head clear. It was like glass, but it was moving. And only parts of it were like a silver wave that occurred around it as you approached it and moved around it. Like its pattern would change depending on where you were standing, how you were looking at it, and at what angle you observed it from. So, with that out of the way, okay, from outside, there is absolutely nothing stairs-wise, like pillars or anything other than like the four that lead straight to the top. But when you're in there in the middle, there is more sections in there than you see from the outside. So when you reach the middle, it's like you're seeing through multiple windows and avenues and doorways. And each one is at a different time, a different world in and of itself. Each one is just different. Ask yourself different how. And you can ask me different how. Every last bit of it is potential. Even just seeing the stairs lead to the top is potential. Even weirder to say that once you do reach the top, you've experienced everything. Because when it's after you're done being destroyed, annihilated, obliterated, you're built back up. I really don't. You're built different after you start taking those steps. When you take the first step at the very bottom, your world is falling apart. You're done. Everything you thought you were afraid of is barreling on you and then shedding off of you. And then when it comes to being at the middle and then taking those steps, it's more of boundaries and things that you believed you needed just kind of get obliterated or annihilated. They're more like smoke. They're more like they don't really exist even. So as you take those steps, you realize that there's a step to each process that you've ever gone through in your life. Anything that you've gone through in your life was just a process on these damn stairs. And each step was ascending to the most climactic apex of a disastrous conclusion from everything that you were built on underneath all of the physical angst and depravity and having to be split in two is like that's fucking nothing compared to when you reach the top. Because when you reach the top, it's everything. And it's nothing for a good long while. It's like you're free. But by the time you reach that point, and by the time I reached that point, I was I was not the person sitting here. I was the people that I destroyed the lives of. I was the people that I sat across from. I was the people I bumped into on the street. I'm the people who stare at me in the street. I was all of it and none of it. And then the long, I can't even call it a walk. Get together. All right. So the progression to the podium was unlike walking, more like floating, flying. And I set down my uniform. And it all just hit me. As if somebody put on my uniform. I was invisible and socked me so hard in my stomach that my lungs collapsed and my stomach came out of my face. I just woke up. And I was sitting here. I looked around and my uniform is gone. I would say it's a really, really trippy dream, but I know it wasn't. I went. Even weirder still, I went outside. It's something about the world. It's different. It looks the same. I even went over my recordings to really watch and see how I was responding to everything I was going through. And even when I just stood outside and looked around, it was like it was brighter. And not bright enough to make it, like bright enough that it felt alright. I actually felt better. Like I was like as if I was standing at the ocean. There were a couple of people outside, and they didn't even glance in my direction. Like nobody recognizes me. I'm going to up to conclusions on that. I'm going to have to go outside, maybe visit the ivory tower, see what, if anything, has changed. So right now, I'm relieved. Yeah. I guess I'll know what has changed, what is the same, whether it even happened. Though just knowing and being aware that my uniform is no longer here, I'm glad to be alive. Glad to have even got out of that tower in the first place, whether or not.